Welcome, everyone. I'm glad you could join us. And while we're kind of waiting for the stragglers, let's go ahead and meditate a little bit, um, just to kind of get the energy of the week off of us. So I think I'd like this little song here. It's only about 4 minutes long. So just center yourself in your heart. Let's take a deep breath. It's nice to see you here. It takes some getting used to this new world. We're moving rapidly, or we already have moved rapidly into the electronic age. We're doing teaching and all kinds of things on the internet. And circumstances has arisen that has kept us apart physically. With the pandemic, we can't be with each other. We can't touch each other physically. No hugging, no shaking hands, all the things I miss so much. with you. I miss our meetings. But in the meantime, we have to adjust. And this is the best we can do for right now. Always looking for ways to do this better. My life is all about spreading the Dharma. And so if this is what I do, then this is what I do. Meditation is so exquisite. To be able to sit with your back nice and straight, take a deep breath, and just put your focus on the divine. Just, you know, when I was growing up, my mother was very religious. And in the church that we went to on Wednesday nights, they would have a prayer and a worship service. It was interesting because during the prayer part of the service, people would get up and they would talk about things that they wanted people to pray for, or they would give up and give a testimonial about how the people had prayed for maybe their son the week before, and then that week the son miraculously got well or something like that. So the prayer was all about improving yourself, improving the lives of others, to alleviate suffering. And it's a good thing. It was a good thing. But then we'd have the worship service. And the worship service in that church was what really, well, I'll tell you about what it is, then I'll tell you what I think it is. In the worship service, they would not ask for anything. In the worship service, you would pray to God and just want to touch Jesus, or just want to touch the divine. That's all you wanted. You didn't want the divine to save your finances from going down or to heal you didn't do it. It was just to touch the divine. It was a worship service. And I found, even though I was only about 5, I found that to be the most beautiful part of the evening. And as I see meditation now, I see it as a worship thing. It's where you're sitting in your stillness and not asking for nothing, just paying attention to your heart and your intention and your will to know God, to touch spirit, not to have spirit come down and heal you or do something for other people. But this was different. This was just being there with spirit and loving the spirit that's, I don't know. I mean, it just seems the more you love, the more you're in touch with God. And the more you're in touch with God, the more you love. So I think it's very important to meditate silently. Worship is done best silently. I guess you could worship out loud, but just keep your focus on the divine, on spirit. It's so exquisite. So do your meditation. Don't do it because it's a chore, but do it because you want to know the divine. You want to bring the divine into you. And now I would like to go into another little thing I'd like to talk to you about. And that is to make a, who are you? You know, well, I'll tell you where this goes. I had an interesting fantasy, I guess it would be called, in which, or I don't know what it would be called. You know, I get these strange things coming to my head. I think we all do. And I thought this was kind of a good one. I was meditating And the thought came that what if I got this pandemic and died, which we're all going to die one day anyway. But I thought, oh, well, that'd put a crimp in my style. But then the thought came, well, if you died and everybody that you know and have come in contact with also died, then what would be your legacy? And I laughed. And I said, who I am and what I do is not dependent upon what people think of me or how they remember me. That would be crazy. If what you think your life is what people think of you, then wow, I don't know what to say about that. One of my acquaintances back when I was a minister was Terry Cole Whitaker. And most of you may not know her by now, but back in the day, she was quite famous. She wrote several books. And although I never really read her books, I bought them because I liked the title and I liked her too. But one of the titles of her books was, What You Think of Me Is None of My Business. And that came to mind when I thought about, who am I? If everything that I am, all that I've taught is gone, what will people think of me? And number one, that doesn't matter, because what people think of me is only what they know of me. And they know so very little of me. So very little. They think they know a lot about me, but they don't. Even my closest friends and my family don't know all of me. How do I know that? Well, it seems to me like I would know who I am, right? And yet I find every day, as my consciousness grows and my awareness grows, I'm finding out things about myself that I didn't know before. Powers that I had that I never knew I had. I see how I had structures and constructs of different feelings and points of view that kept me stuck in a certain way. And when I grew and grew, I grew away from that. I wasn't stuck by it anymore. My life is always changing. It's always growing. I will never stop. Throughout all of eternity, I will continue, just like you. We don't end here. This is just a breath. Every lifetime is a single breath to the soul. You're born, you live, you mature, you decay, you die. And in each life, we learn things about ourselves. We learn how we got stuck in our ignorance. We learned how we took the divine love of the divine and turned it into duality and created all of this stuff. And when I tune into the divine love of God, I can dissolve all of that and come flow. I can flow with spirit. You are not who other people think you are. You're much more than that. Your life is not defined by your history. History is always incomplete because it's told and presented through the eyes of people who are asleep. Wake up. Wake up. Let go. Surrender. Surrender your life. It's just a dream. All of these things you hold dear are not eternal, except love. And love is what we're made of. And love is what binds us together. We have to love each other. I think spiritual love is a really good thing. If you need a template, just imagine everybody as being your mother or your father or your brother or sister or your son or your daughter or your grandchild. Keep it clean. It's a good love. It's a selfless love. Let love well up inside your heart. Don't be afraid of it. Let love work you into a place where you can practice forgiveness. Forgiveness of yourself. Forgiveness of others. And yeah, forgive God. Because that's a silly thing to do, is to be angry at the divine. You don't even know what the divine is. If you knew what the divine was, you couldn't be angry. If you knew who you were, you would feel no guilt or shame. Just open your heart. Set your will upon the divine. Focus on the divine. Meld with the divine. Let the divine come down and meld with your consciousness. Let the divine come into your contemplation and your experience. Let the divine hone your will, your spiritual will. And let the divine fill your heart with unconditional love, with forgiveness, and with charity. Life is very short. We step out of these bodies very quickly. Seems like we're just here for a single breath. What do we take with us? We take with us those acts of unity and love. I've had several near-death experiences. One that I remember quite well was I died. And as I rose out of my body, my life passed before my eyes. And what I saw were two things that stood out. One was I saw all of the things that I had done in this life, where I had helped somebody, been kind to somebody, done something nice for somebody that was not expected. Those really nice things that I did. And then the other things that I saw were those times when I was selfish and I acted out of ignorance. And the anger and the pain that came out of that, I felt very badly about it. But I had the good, and I had those times when I didn't do it correctly. It was very stark. I could see it. And when I came back into the body, I remembered that. I know what's important. What's important is what we call bodhicitta. It's selfless service. It's helping people, not expecting them to even acknowledge it. That was the point I was making earlier. They don't have to acknowledge your goodness. If you're good, you're good. If nobody recognizes, it doesn't matter. Your goodness is dependent upon their recognition of it. They can't even see the goodness in themselves or the goodness in anyone. Just do the act. Be loving, be kind. Remember There's never an excuse to be mean or cruel or inconsiderate. Just be nice. I mean, how hard is that? Quit using bad language. Watch the words you say. The words you say have meaning. Even though your intention may be fun and happy, there's a better word to use. An example would be, put your hands over the children's ears right now. When I was growing up, I used to use the word son of a bitch. Son of a bitch. Oh, you crazy son of a bitch. Oh, he's so happy, that son of a bitch. And we didn't mean it badly. But look at the word. Son of a bitch. You're calling somebody's mother a female dog? How demeaning. How horrible. Is there a better way to say it? You could say, you're a crazy person. You're a crazy guy. But you don't have to say son of a bitch. You don't have to use any of those nasty swear words. They have a nasty energy to them. You go around your house and you're picking up everything clean. I mean, you've got everything in its place. And then over there, there's a handkerchief that you had when you had a cold and it's just full of stuff. What do you do with it? You get rid of it. You wash it, you put it in the washer and you get rid of it. You don't leave it out there. You don't show it to everybody. These words are like that. Pick a word that has a better meaning. You can clean it up. You can clean up your attitude. It's for you, not for other people. What they think is none of your business. So we practice mindfulness. We practice right language, right action. We live a life of empathy. We try to feel what other people are feeling. We don't have to agree with them. How can you agree with somebody who's acting out of fear and anger and ignorance, and all that they're doing is destructive and harmful? No, I can't, I don't agree with that. But I'm looking a little deeper. I'm trying to see what would push somebody to have that kind of attitude. What would cause someone who claims they're a Christian to say it's okay for people to starve to death? Or that it's all right to keep children away when they're sick or in need or in harm's way? Or take them away from their parents? What would cause people to do that? So I create a little empathy. I see, well, how were they raised? What's in their mental? Are they a sociopath? Are they a psychopath? What's going on? And as I get empathy, I gain wisdom and compassion. That's qualities that are sorely missed right now. But these are qualities you can bring into your life. You can make a difference in your life. When you're not coming from fear or from scarcity, when your heart is full and open, life becomes an amazing experience. I was talking to one of my students this week, and we were talking about enlightenment. And she said, I'm not so sure that I want enlightenment. It seems like my life would change. I said, oh yeah, it would change. But I said, do you think enlightenment, that you can be happy in enlightenment? And she looked at me and I says, do you? Am I happy? Yeah. I'm pretty happy. I have an amazing life. When I go walk my dog in the park, I don't see anybody having as good a time as I am. They're all stuck in a third dimensional thing here. And everything they see is colored by their background and by their prejudices. And oh, I don't like this type of year. I can't wait for the fall to come or whatever. There are all these things going on. Me and my little dog are walking through this fourth dimensional hologram of this park with these animals. And it's just so glorious and so amazing. And there's so many different levels of light and awareness. It's right there. Why wouldn't you want that? You say, well, how does that help anybody? It helps everybody. When I'm free and happy, everyone around me in my world, all of my worlds are shining. But it does require opening your heart and taking in somebody else's point of view just to see what's driving them. If you don't see where their limitations are from, how can you possibly help them? If you don't see underneath what the wounds are. I went up to my teacher. It was in Los Angeles. I remember it well. It was in the lobby of the Wilshire Ebell Theater during a break. And I walked up to him. Now, I've had a whole lifetime of wanting to be a minister, right? And I was a minister at the time. I just quit. But I went up to him and I said, he was about to walk away, and I said, Rama. And I said his name like a mantra, Ra-Ma. Quite a mantra. And he stopped and he turned and he came over to me. He said, what would you like? And I said, Rama, I want to be a teacher. And he looked at me. You will be. But there's a few things you need to learn first. You need to be able to look at someone and see their past lives. So you can see the trajectory of their soul, where they're at, and the direction that they're going. You need to be able to see their subtle physical, see where they've injured themselves. You can see where the tears are in their subtle physical from angry sex or drugs or violence. You can see that all in their aura. It makes them age a lot quicker, actually. Or their drug abuse or whatever. You can see that in them. And then you start looking at their calls about what is their mental capacity? How much can they possibly apprehend? Everybody's limited. We can only apprehend so much of eternity, and then we just go into samadhi. But yeah, how much can they apprehend? What's this causal body? And he went through all of these different things. You know, when you can see this, when you can experience that, you can be a good teacher. He says, if you don't see this, it's like you're coming along and picking the scab off, but you're not dealing with what caused the wound in the first place. He says, you need to see all of this so you can be an effective teacher. And I broke my heart. I thought I could never do that. I had none of those abilities. But within 1 year, I started having them. They just started showing up. You know when they started showing up? When I started to teach. When I started putting other people's enlightenment ahead of my own, these things popped up. They didn't show up until I did. When my teacher passed over 20 years ago, I've been encouraging all of my fellow monks to teach, because I have noticed that when I taught, it took me into enlightenment. I've also noticed that those people who did teach with a clear heart, trying to put their students ahead of themselves, all of them went into enlightenment too. Enlightenment is possible in this life for you. You just have to give up your ignorance. And I want to remind you that there's a difference between stupidity and ignorance. Stupidity is a limitation of what you can actually comprehend. Some people are very bright and some people are kind of dull. Ignorance is curable. And the idea behind what we do is to eliminate or get rid of the ignorance. And the ignorance is that you are separate from God. The ignorance is that you think there are people out there who are not connected to you, that there are events and things going on that have nothing to do with you or God, and that is ignorance. Everything is God. What is your experience of God? I'm not talking about the world. I'm talking about you. What is your experience of the divine? That's the only thing that matters. Teaching is about getting people to experience the divine. And in that mode, pretty high karma. In your life, you can attain enlightenment this time. Anything like that, anything that doesn't agree with that is a lie. But you can go ahead and believing in lies. Hang on to the ignorance, which is a stupid thing to do. Hang on to your ignorance and you'll have it. You can keep it. You can keep your suffering. But enlightenment is quite amazing. I highly recommend it. Absolutely. Nothing better that I can find. Anyway, I want you to be gentle with yourself. Start practicing mindfulness. Watch the words you say. Realize that everything that comes out of your mouth, you're casting a spell. And do you want those words? Do you want that kind of spell? Oh, the world is going to go through a terrible, terrible time. Well, that's an interesting spell to cast. How about just saying we're going through a wonderful transformation that's going to lead us into a beautiful new world? Now that makes me feel pretty good. Well, what about all these people that are dying? What part of eternal life don't you understand? We don't die. We definitely leave and take on bodies. We do this all the time. Incarnation isn't a one-shot deal. Even the people who don't believe in incarnation believe in some sort of an afterlife, most of them anyway. And if you believe in an afterlife, then that's another incarnation, isn't it? So that's a reincarnation into an afterlife. We just have different views of what it is. And my view of it is that we're going on a path. And every lifetime is a step we take on that path. And sometimes we misstep and we go up a way and we stumble a little bit. Then we have to get back on the path. And then we're making another step. And we have these little bodies to learn about ourselves and to learn about our life, to learn about God, to find God. Let's meditate to two songs. The first one, both of these songs are from the album Samadhi by Zazen. Of the lotus. Take a breath. Have a great week. Namaste.